Hey everybody, welcome back to the Overwatch channel on YouTube, also at overwatchproject.com. Now we're trying to communicate to each other about stuff that's, basically what am I doing here? I'm talking about metaphysical stuff, right? Let's define that first. Metaphysics is the branch of philosophy concerned with explaining the fundamental nature of being and the world that encompasses it. Metaphysics attempts to answer two basic questions in the broadest possible terms. Ultimately, what is there and what is it like? It attempts to explain our existence, right? And how do you do that? By looking at data, evidence, direct witness testimony of experiences that people have, near-death experiences, out-of-body phenomena, etc., and so many other things. And in my last video, I had a comment from a frequent visitor on my YouTube channel, Chimpazilla, and it's clear here that there was a miscommunication going on with the word, just one word, duality. And I tried to, we went back and forth, and everything's good, but this reminded me, I went to college for a couple of years, and before I stopped going to college, I took a communication class in psychology of communication, and when the professor put up this model, a picture of what has to happen so that one person speaking to another person in a conversation, they're having back and forth, the thing that has to happen for these two people alone to understand each other, it was mind-blowing. I was like, oh yeah, all that stuff can really derail your communication. So I'm not an expert wordsmith. I do my best here on YouTube, but I'm really not a professional wordsmith, so to speak. So I don't have any magic when I come here talking to you. But I can tell you this: when you're talking about metaphysics, you're cranking that problem of communication. Just think about it. People talk to each other all the time, and in regular everyday conversation, how many times do you run into a problem where the person didn't understand what you were saying, you didn't get what they were saying, or both of you didn't understand each other? You thought you were clear, they thought they were clear. People get pissed off at each other when that happens. It happens all the time in everyday stuff. And then you throw metaphysics into it, and this is like multiplied times 1,000, because here we're talking about things that can't really be put into words all the time. So we do the best we can, right? Near-death experiencers, if you look at their accounts, how many times do they say, well, I can't explain it in words, but, and then they try to. It's hard to explain. They say that all the time because words don't carry the true information they're trying to give you, right? We have to do the best we can with this language. Now, why do we have this language problem? I say it's intentional. We're designed to be hampered in our communications, especially about certain things. For one thing, when people experience out-of-body events or near-death experiences, they suddenly are able to communicate with telepathy, right? We don't have vocal cords out of body. Information is bundled and then sent out, and it's beyond words, right? So you have imagine I was able to communicate something I learned or investigated with all the information that came with it, and I was able to send it out, and you could download it into your being, and you could examine it with your personal experiences, send me back your stuff, and then we could imagine how fast everybody would learn about everything, and how quickly this whole simulation, reality, reincarnation, prison trap would just crumble. In order to make sure that we're as dumbed down as possible, our powers of communication have been highly restricted here. Well, that's not cool. That is not cool. I was going with such good flow there. But of course, my dogs have it in for this blue jay that's coming around, and they really want to go out there and try to get it, I guess. Anyway, the whole dilemma I had, or I ran into with just the word duality. Duality. This is Everpedia, by the way. It's like Wikipedia, but different. I always look for alternatives. I don't want to stick with what everybody else is using. Sometimes there are better sources out there. There's also Infogalactic. That's also another Wikipedia alternative. I'll link to everything in the description section below so you can check it out for yourself. But duality in philosophy, logic, and psychology. There's a lot of meaning in this one word alone. And different people, I mean, just look at this. Depending on how you're using this word, it means all kinds of different things. You could be using it one way and not another. And let me just say this about non-duality. Let me refresh your memories. I'm sure a lot of you have already read Robert Monroe's book, Far Journeys, or as part of his 3-book series. Spoiler alert, this will contain information I'm about to say that is in the book that if you don't want to know, then I suggest you go read the book and come back and watch the video. But if you don't care, it's about to come out now. So, in Robert Monroe's book, Far Journeys, you get to meet AA and BB. AA, of course, being what is revealed to be actually him in later in the 3rd book. But the point here being is that you're dealing not only with duality and non-duality, you're dealing with linear time and non-linear time. These concepts are so complex that just to get the human brain that is limiting our consciousness to try to understand what is going on here, it takes a lot of contemplation to do it, a lot of effort. So you have Monroe meeting himself, basically, but knowing that it's himself, and himself in a prior and completely different being state as a non-human entity from a place called KT95, possibly somewhere in the multiverse or the omniverse. I don't think it had anything to do with anything inside this universe, demiurgic matrix that we exist in. And Earth, the Loosh farm, comes into play here. And this is around page 124, chapter 10. I don't know what page it'll be in a paper book, but on the Kindle here, it seems to be in 124. This whole account here of AA and BB, these two beings that are friends and that are on this tour of time-space illusion, which is this universe. And they're near Earth now, and there's all this M-band noise that is very attractive. This place is like a Venus flytrap in the multiverse or the omniverse. And when any non-physical immortal beings that we all are come near this place, it's like it wants to suck you in. All you have to do is ask. Of course, to enter, you have to ask. You have to agree. This is clear. I don't even think Monroe noted what he experienced, but I don't think he interpreted his experiences correctly. Maybe because he didn't have any knowledge of things like the demiurge and archons and things like that, but it's still, that makes it even more valuable when you read what he wrote. So the whole thing here being that this place that they came from, KT95, apparently is a place without evil, as we define it. And what did the beings there do? They seem to do nothing but play games. All kinds of games. That's what is explained in this book, in the interaction that Bob Monroe, out of body, is experiencing with basically himself and this other being, BB. Now, in order to get this is very complex, and what I mean is it's very hard to explain this because you have dualism and you have non-duality, which is totally something else. But you have to understand that a true non-duality would mean that you don't move. There's no motion. There's no action, reaction. A duality can be simply left, right, up, down, front, back to allow you to move in one direction or another. It has nothing to do with in the purity of the term, it doesn't have anything to do with good or bad or suffering and hardship or anything like that. And to understand what's going on here, go back to Monroe's book. You have beings from a place called KT95. And what did they do there? They are gamers, basically. And therefore, nobody hurts anybody. Nobody is involved in, as far as I can tell, this is just based on the limited information, but let's just go with what is presented here at face value. KT95 is a realm or universe where non-physical beings spend all their eternity playing all sorts of games. This means that it is, in its pure sense, a by choice dualistic environment, but it doesn't involve anything evil. It just involves games. If I were to sit down and play a game of chess with you, we would be in the strictest possible terms, participating in a dualistic experience with no harm, no evil, no pain, no suffering, nothing like that is going on. At the same time, you have linear and nonlinear time. This is all very complicated crap that, we have to deal with when you're trying to understand this stuff. When you're dealing with non-duality, there's also a danger you get sucked into this idea of this surrendering of your individuality, which is usually where non-duality leads, which I think is just another trap. So that your individual essence, your true divine spark spirit can finally be consumed when it won't stay trapped anymore. So you voluntarily surrender yourself to some merger with something. And that is, I consider that bad. And there's this whole thing with time and a near-death experience. Everything, once you're out of the body, you're dealing with non-linear time. You're out of the time-space illusion, something that even physics scientists talk about, right? Time is an illusion. This whole thing we have here is all designed to trick us. So what is the difference between our reality and, people call it the game of life? Because it's not a game, okay? Games require some basic things that I define when I'm playing a game. Number one, I know it's a game. Number two, nobody's going to actually hurt. Number three, I can quit anytime I want. This isn't a game. You know what it is? It's a confidence game. Yeah, that's right. It's a con game. Our reality is like a confidence game, and we're the suckers. Now, I just wanted to try to clarify this so people can understand what I'm talking about. I can use words, and you may misunderstand everything I'm saying because we're stuck using words. In mythology, there is some theory out there that mythology can contain or was based on truth. And mythology can be both true and false at the same time, because it can be a metaphor, and it can be a concept that is being relayed that is actually based on some kind of reality, but has now been changed into a fictional story. Think about what is going on here. We're cut off from telepathy. Because if I was able to communicate to you telepathically right now, instead of with words, I would be able to bundle a ton of information. I would be able to bundle all this information. So not only what I'm trying to say to you, but all the research I've done, all of my source material that I am building up, what I said to you, I could send it to you. You could then inspect all of that, or what Bob Monroe called a rote, I think. What people in near-death experiences talk about. And that's where you get this story of the Tower of Babel, right, from Genesis 11:1-9. And then, it's amazing when you read what things actually say in the Bible versus what apologists want you to think. What is really going on in this account here, in this mythos? The whole world had one language, as people migrated to the east, they found a plain, settled there, and I'm just going to paraphrase here, and they wanted to build things, but the Demiurge, I'm just going to say what it is, Demiurge, the AI that controls this universe, became concerned here. And he says, behold, they are one people and they are one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do. And nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Whoa, that is really powerful stuff. What are these people doing wrong? Nothing. Come down, let's go F them up. Let's go screw up their language and communication ability so they can't communicate with each other. I don't know everything about Carlos Castaneda and all of his works, but I do have read some of his material. I don't know a lot about the man personally or anything, but this one quote here, I want you to let's play this. Let's listen to this. Listen to what he's saying here. Something that I've brought up before, but I think he wordsmiths it a little bit better.
We have a predator that came from the depths of the cosmos and took over the rule of our lives. Human beings are its prisoners. The predator is our lord and master. It has rendered us docile, helpless. If we want to protest, it suppresses our protest. If we want to act independently, it demands that we don't do so. I have been beating around the bush all this time, insinuating to you that something is holding us prisoner. Indeed, we are held prisoner. This was an energetic fact for the sorcerers of ancient Mexico. They took us over because we are food for them, and they squeeze us mercilessly because we are their sustenance. Just as we rear chickens in chicken coops, the predators rear us in human coops, human arrows. Therefore, their food is always available to them. No, 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 Carlos replies. This is absurd, Don Juan. What you're saying is something monstrous. It simply can't be true. The sorcerers are for average men, or for anyone. Why not? Don Juan asked calmly. Why not? Because it infuriates you. You haven't heard all the claims yet. I want to appeal to your analytical mind. Think for a moment. And tell me how you would explain the contradictions between the intelligence of man, the engineer, and the stupidity of his systems of beliefs, or the stupidity of his contradictory behavior.
Yeah, I want to stop there. Okay, I've tried to explain this in several other videos. There is no explanation for this contradiction in human behavior. People can come together in groups and build, engineer, and do amazing things. Aircraft, supersonic jets, skyscrapers, whatever. This computer that I'm working on right now. People come together and they make something and it works. And they have an understanding. Nothing we make here in this matter world will be perfect, but if you can work with the system that we're in, you can make something, still create something wonderful, right? In this prison, just like prisoners in prison make stuff out of their environment. They make, for, unfortunately, a lot of shivs, but other things like chessboards they make themselves and all this other stuff, right? So, and you can see that in movies and stories if you've worked in law enforcement, you know what I'm talking about. And then if you think about this though, 6,000 years of recorded history alone, and there's way more history beyond that that's been suppressed and hidden from us, but the 6,000 that we are aware of, you have got to be effing kidding me that human beings can't come together as a group and make a plan for how to coexist, not perfectly, but as best as possible. In fact, what you get is the exact opposite. As soon as you enter that realm, everything becomes counterintuitive. And it's hard for people to understand that it's by making the individual important that actually the group of society gets better. Instead, they come up with all these false utopian ideas. They get this fake standard of perfection that can never be met. We don't expect it anywhere else. Why would we expect it in society? Everything crumbles into tyranny. People place the state as their godhead. And and then they wonder why everything goes in the crapper relatively quickly. And this cycle is predominant all over the world, with very few tiny exceptions. And as soon as people pop up with some freedom and individuality, it gets squashed out of existence as fast as possible. Please be quiet. Anyway, the rest of his quote is interesting, but this part here: I want to appeal to your analytical mind. Think for a moment and tell me how you would explain the contradictions between the intelligence of man, the engineer, and the stupidity of his systems of beliefs, or the stupidity of his contradictory behavior. Now, this quote goes on to tell us that the archons, the demiurge, basically gave us its mind. I've said this before, that our brain is designed to screw us up. And in what he's saying here is basically the same thing. We've been given the mind of our AI imprisoner here. And I really believe the entire universe here, the entire universe is this simulation reality. So it's, going out and worshiping Mother Gaia, for example, is not going to help you, because you're just worshiping the simulation. Being attached to anyone that is going to be attached back here again will get you trapped back here. Exiting this place actually will be an individual exercise. You shouldn't count on being able to take any of your loved ones with you, because they may not be able to leave, because they have to really want to, and they have to do it on their own also. So, the problem of communication means that everything I said here at some point will be misunderstood, or I haven't communicated it properly to you, because you can't, right? I mean, let's get back to the original comment. This whole thing about duality. Duality is a word, and it has a very complex meaning when it comes to talking about dualism. If you could choose, if you were out of body, you don't have to eat, you can produce your own energy, you can travel at will throughout the omniverse, you can choose to exist in a non-dualistic state, meaning you would become completely still. There would be no interaction between you and anything else, because you have freedom, complete freedom. When you're outside of the matrix, when you're outside of this realm, you would have complete and total freedom. So you would be able to simply stop. I'm going to be in a non-dualistic state. There'll be no motion, there'll be no movement, there'll be nothing. There'll be just me frozen for as long as I want, because you're free to do that outside the body. Or you could jump over to KT95, possibly meet up with AA and BB over there, Robin Rowe, when he eventually gets back home and stops coming here. I mean, when you read this account of how he got sucked in here, it really is amazing. You can go there and you can play games. Fun games which would involve duality, but do not involve light and dark or good and evil. They would just involve an exchange for fun. I mean, we do this all the time here. We participate in games. And what do you have in a game? The knowledge that it's a game, rules that keep anybody from actually being hurt. And I'm not talking about games that involve hurting. I'm talking about simple games. Whether it's you're in a video game with somebody, or you're playing a card game, or it's chess, or whatever. So you can play a game, and you know it's a game, and you can walk away from that game anytime you choose, and there's no harm that comes to anybody in a game. Strictly speaking, you are now in a complete duality there. You and the other person. Games can be fun. The competition doesn't have to be for any ill-gotten good. I mean, you have to think of the totality of the information. This isn't just about any one thing. These things carry deep, deep meanings, and things here are counterintuitive. Oops. Counterintuitive And this is how we get completely effed up here. And then you have the linear versus nonlinear time. Let me just say this about linear versus nonlinear time. People always have this concept, and I don't think they're thinking about all the angles on this. You know, my whole self, my higher self, my source self. Like there's one you out there that's all one, and then you've been fractaled, or you've been broken, and you're here and you're there. No, because you know what? You're not really thinking about non-linear time. If you're in non-linear time, you can meet yourself, but you're still the same person. Both places. You can be in two places at once, and you're still an actual individual. And this is so hard to put into words because it doesn't it isn't intuitive in any way. We experience the time-space illusion here. Our brain hinders us from understanding this. When Bob Monroe meets AA, he is still meeting himself, the same person, but in a non-linear time-space, void of the time-space illusion. When you're in a linear time, you could say that, you know, you could apply, if you were applying the same kind of thought pattern as Chimpazilla was in that comment, linear time's always bad, it's always evil. But what is linear time really is that you're focused in on one thing. When people have near-death experiences, they have non-linear time, but they can also follow a flow of events. How are they doing that? Because in non-linear time, as in non-dualistic environments, you can bring in a dualistic element and you can bring in a linear element. It's all about what you're focusing on. Monroe, in his book, frequently described locations as focus points. And this makes total sense. When you're out of body, when you're free of the prison body, that is not a temple, it is a prison cell, you can focus on whatever, and that's what your experience will be. So I hope I explained this a little bit better, and the difficulty of trying to explain the whole concept here that I'm trying to explain in words, where words can't even begin to do this justice. But I hope you kind of get what I'm saying here. So Everpedia and Infogalactic, two sources that you can look up words I showed you here and look at the meanings themselves. This quote from Carlos Castaneda and from the active side of infinity is, I think, worth a read. Montauk.net has this whole timeline dynamics, which will make your head spin even more. Communication dilemmas, time and the near-death experience, science and non-duality. I can't post this link because it's my Kindle, and you'll have to buy the book yourself. And yeah, just, you know, what I hope you get what I'm trying to say. Anyway, one more thing. Tomorrow night, Friday night, I'll make another short video announcing this. I will probably be on Jeffrey Doherty's show again, 11 p.m. New York time. So if everything goes according to plans, I'll see you then. Until then, I'm going to give my dogs some treats now so that they'll settle down and stop focusing on the dreaded blue jay and that one squirrel that wants to come around and torment them. So, well, that's it for now. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.